Hey everyone, it's Kong. Welcome to Ancient Beckoning School featuring Professor Qtaru. This is the lesson on Jormungandr, the fourth boss in the Ancient Beckoning cycle. In this lesson, Professor Q is going to cover basic strategy and approach to the boss, as well as some alternate characters you can use. Let's go ahead and jump right into the lesson.
Oh, hello, Kong. I'm glad you invited me.
Yes, welcome.
Alright, so he's requested that I show off just how I managed to get this sweet little score on Jormungandr, and hopefully I can help you to improve your own scores. So here's the team I used. Brenda is pretty important as a DPS, as is Kirikaze. And a lot of people use Deedlit, but I found that Layla actually works better than Deedlit once you have Tiny Jessica. So this is the team, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to gear them how I had them geared in this fight, because they're not currently geared. And then I'll go into the fight and show you the strategy I used.
Awesome. I just have to remark on your score there. That's a full 7 million points higher than the next person on the list. That's ridiculous.
That's Brenda for you. Alright, so here, with my mages, I like running Meditation Ring. So I happen to have a pretty nice enchanted one here for Tiny Jessica. And the rest of my gear set is going to be a clock set, not because, well, clock is useful on Tiny Jessica for her 3C spam potentially. But honestly, it's actually because my clock enchants are the ones with the most bulk. And I get pretty good in on them anyway. But in terms of pure damage, if you had a 2+2 set, that might actually do better. So this is what my stats look like with the clock set that I used. If you had a 2+2 red, it could potentially go up to like +500 or higher. But the issue is that you need to have enough HP, so I just went with the more bulky set as you see here. So this is the gear I have on Juggler. I'm not really changing it. Juggler isn't... I mean, he is important for the fight, but he's not that important in terms of his gear. Let me see. Alright, here's Brenda. Alright, Brenda, I stole Scarlet Reaper from Ares, as well as his attack accessory because the attack is OP. And she wants her unique gear. Then I took this tier off Elwyn. Again, lots of bulk. So that's the stats my Brenda has. Pretty nice. This is the skill set you also want to run as well. You want to have her 3C, and you want to have Armor Pierce for the defense down. And you want to have Move again. It adds damage, and also it helps with positioning in the fight. Let me see, next character. Alright. Okay, Tierras looks like she's still geared. So this is the gear I use on Tierras for the fight. Any healing staff works. You don't, because Juggler's Hellhounds, you don't really need Overstaff. It's just what I have with the best enchant. So that's what Tierras looks like, and this is the skill set I'll be bringing as well. Miracle Attack Blessing and Single Target Heal. Alright, here's Layla. That is the skill set Layla uses. Holy Word, Attack Command, and Move again. Now, her weapon, she actually... I'm using Mistletoe for the damage dealt decrease proc. It also increases healing, which is useful for her talent. Just like Tiny Jessica with Layla, you want Med Ring. This one's Not quite as OP as Tiny Jessica's, but it's serviceable. And then again, I'm just going to be stealing more clock and chains because they're the ones that have bulk. Right, so that's what my Layla ends up looking like. Also, for her soldiers, I use these spiders for the magic defense down proc. Doesn't happen every time, but 75% is pretty regular, and it helps her and Tiny Jess quite a bit.
I also noticed that she's only 5-star right now, so you actually have some room to improve as well.
Yeah, I think at 6-star, maybe I could push for 21 million. But I'm pretty happy with 20 million,
I'd say.
All right, Kirikaze, you want Crystal Stinger? It is by far the best weapon he can use on this. Let's have a nice enchant on his armor, as well as give him some attack and bulk on his headpiece. And let's go with this one, a lot of attack. All right, so I'm running 2+2 red on my DPS quite often. It actually does the most damage, with the potential exception of Blazing Sun. I've considered using Blazing Sun on my Kiri, but the Blazing Sun set I have, it doesn't really have any bulk. So I'm just going 2+2 red, which does very close the same amount of damage currently, partly because my Blazing Sun Stinger refuses to get more than 11% attack. But I think that covers everyone's gear. So looking at the fight, okay, so Tiny Jessica, I use these skills 3C, Holy Light just for the healing utility, and then Teleport so she can spam Act Again, or maybe depending on the phase, later on it might help with positioning, getting someone out of the way so you don't eat an AoE. Kirikaze, he runs 2 attack increasing passives and then Flash, which has a 1-turn cooldown, so thanks to his talent, it's always going to be ready. Now with Kiri, I want to talk a little bit. His 2 best troops for this fight are Barbarian Warrior and Berserker. And I'm not really sure which one is better, because Barbarian has higher attack, but only when you're attacking. Berserker has higher attack when you're counterattacking, because the things that warriors get, it only applies when you're attacking. Whereas Berserkers just have a straight up 15% attack increase all the time. And also Berserkers have more crit. So Barbarians technically have a higher ceiling if you're attacking and getting crits with them all the time. But as far as I can tell, the damage kind of equals out pretty even overall. The thing is, I have them raised, so I'm using them on Kiri. Alright. Layla, I start over here with attack command. That way she can attack right away and get attack command on your melee DPS. Brenda, I kind of explained earlier. Berserkers are her best troops for this. Tiers, I'm running with Holy Knights just for the increased healing. And then Juggler obviously has Hellhounds for the debuff. And then Master of Ice and Sacred Beast Hymn are because... Well, let's get into the fight. Jorm is actually sitting on a tree tile. So you can see up here, it says forced 20% defense. If you give him a water debuff that actually negates that 20% defense buff. So it helps increase your DPS. So the general strategy is to open up each round if you can, with Juggler doing a Master of Ice or a 3C to get the water debuff. Kiri goes in for some big damage. Actually, I was wrong. I'm already making mistakes. You want Brenda to go in first for Armor Pierce.
This is good because it shows people the thought process that goes behind layering the debuffs. What kind of procs you want to get off in what order.
Alright, so now we've got all these wonderful debuffs on them. So Kiri should do a little bit better here. Alright, 100,000, that looks better. Now, another thing you may have noticed is I moved Brenda up. That's actually because Kiri does somewhat higher counterattack damage, even though I'm using Barbarians. So I move her up, so Jorm will target Kiri instead. The only time when I have Jorm attack Brenda, there's two situations. It's when she will need an extra talent stack to be able to attack twice the next turn, or it'll be on the even phase, which I'll show you when we get to. Right, in Tiny Jess, I'm just teleporting here just to build stacks and spam Tenyo buffs. All right, now with Brenda's 3C, she's actually ready to attack twice. So I'm going to open up with the melee attack from Juggler. Then we'll go with Layla, and then we park Layla over here on this tree. The reason for this is I want the attack command aura to be able to reach Brenda and Kiri as they attack from the side and underneath. But the melee of... well, these infantry troops have a tech where they get a 30% damage bonus if there's no ally within one tile. So having Layla here enables both of them to get the bonus of the attack command without ruining their offensive tech.
Sneaky.
Right. Now we can run an attack blessing, and Kiri is my usual target for attack blessing. The reason for that is because, well, obviously Stinger means that he will be ignoring more defense, and also Brenda has she already has a damage increase in her talent, so attack blessing is proportionally a smaller boost to her than it is to Kiri. That and Kiri gets to use an attack skill every single turn. Alright, we have a new face, so we open up with Master of Ice. And Brenda has Armor Pierce ready again. So let's move her up out of the way, so Kiri is the one who gets targeted for the attack. Let's run in with Layla, do Holy Word. Now, because even phase, I forgot to mention, it alternates, when you attack, it alternates a damage reduction buff. So I opened up with a melee attack from Brenda, so it switched to a melee range damage reduction. So then I attack from range with Layla, and then it switches over to a range damage. So now we use Kiri. And it switched back over to being a melee damage reduction. So if possible, you want to end your turn using a ranged character. That way, when you get the melee counterattack doesn't have any damage reduction, reducing your output.
Right.
Now, with its attacks, usually with these single target attacks, it says prioritizing the closest units. The typical priority it focuses on is it starts on the right side, then it seems to prioritize down, left, then up. Maybe I have it wrong. Maybe it's up first, but usually it will prioritize right before it prioritizes down. But I believe if the person you put right there is a ranged character, it doesn't actually care to attack the ranged character. So this should work. It should attack Kiri anyway. Yep. So that allows you to put your healing light back onto a Brenda. Alright, this turn, because Juggler is actually physically attacking, it's going to alter things somewhat. Because now there's going to be 3 physical attacks, and usually you only have 2 ranged attacks. So this time I'm actually going to have Tieris join in on the attacking front.
I predict a lot of people will be building Kirikaze after seeing this video.
He's pretty awesome for this fight. But Brenda is doing a lot too. Because like her defense minus 30%, that you can't really discount how important that is, as well as her ability to attack twice. So like she did 80,000 there, and even though for her second turn now it switched over to having her fighting someone with the 80% damage reduction for melee, she's got 30% in her talent, so it helps her sort of pierce through and still do decent damage, even despite having that shield up. And if you notice, I had her attacking from up top. And the reason for that is just, like I mentioned before, it's the infantry tech. There's a 30% damage bonus you get if you don't have allies. So I put Tieris here, so that's why I was attacking with her from up top. And we have just 2-rounded this boss. for the second phase. And here we have ourselves a new phase, so just open up before, Juggler attacks for Hellhound debuff. Run Tears down here, get attack blessing on Kiri. Now I can do Power Stab, or Armor Pierce. Power Stab's a defense conversion one. Have her run up. Kiri can do his thing. Clock is always nice. And this is basically the strategy for the fight is a whole lot of this repeated. It gets a little trickier later on when you start taking more damage and maybe you aren't able to knock them out in a couple rounds.
Yeah, I've seen you mention before about being able to two-turn him as a metric. And I guess once that changes, you need to think about a shift to your strategy a little bit.
Yeah, I'll demonstrate the even phase here. So let's say I knew I would not be able to defeat Jorm here on this phase. And so I had to worry about this poison skill here. In that case, I would simply retreat with Juggler to this corner. Let's see. Brenda would probably be attacking from up top. Oh, actually, I would have had her attack from down here. I should have mentioned that's one of the reasons for move again. So I'll just use the 3C so I can demonstrate. I should have attacked from the right, that way I could benefit from Layla's attack command. And then I would have her move up top. Kiri would do his thing. Then I would actually have Tiny Jess, who can attack from a safe spot right here, attack. Then Layla would come up here, Holy Word. And then Layla is considered a ranged character, so it's safe for her to position here. And you'll get attack command on these two for whoever it attacks. And it won't attack Layla. And then you can just position Tieris over here. And you're safe from the AoE now. And then usually, in my experience with a strong party, I never had to even deal with sweep. I could always kill it before then. Until the point where it literally was impossible to keep my party alive. So that's the general strat. Do you have any questions?
No, that looks awesome. I think my only question is, it's great to see that adaptation of when you need to start facing the other attacks. What does it look like when your team starts to fall apart?
What I mean when it starts to fall apart is the point where the AoE is doing so much damage that it's eventually there's a point where you're not going to be able to keep attack blessing on Kirikaze anymore, because you're going to have to be using Tieris to cast heal on Layla, so Layla can attack and get the damage down proc, and also get a little bit of healing on everyone. And at that point, it's going to end up not too much longer before the AoE is going to outright kill Layla.
Okay.
So you can slow that down by not attacking with Layla, but the issue with that is then you don't get the damage down proc on Jorm. So maybe someone else ends up eating more AoE damage, which actually happened to me. At the end of my run, there's a situation where either Layla would survive or Kirikaze would survive, and I ran out of clocks. So I just continued on for the couple turns that I could after that. But it generally is a pretty easy strat once you get it down. The only tricky thing is you don't have to become so mind-numbed that you do things like I did, where I attacked with Brenda from up top without benefiting from Layla's attack command aura.
Right, and it's interesting to think how even little things like that add up to contribute a lot of damage over the span of the entire fight.
Yeah, you want to take advantage of all the small things that you can to increase your damage potential. So, is there anything else you want me to go over? Like maybe other characters that might potentially find use here?
That would probably be the most helpful thing for most viewers is what do I do if I don't have Brenda, for example? Or what do I do if I don't have Gerald and Layla? Because probably everyone has Kirikaze, maybe not necessarily built, but there will be a lot of people out there who definitely haven't built Gerald and Layla or don't even have Brenda, for example. So kind of common substitutions for those characters that people might be able to make work. I think that would be good to see.
Oh, here you can see the Lord Thy God using not Tiny Jessica, but Young Jessica. I think the strength of Young Jessica is if you give her the range +1 staff, she can actually attack Jorm from outside of his attack range and get a lot of damage up that way. And if Jorm doesn't counterattack, I don't think you get the damage taken debuff. So that actually means that she's pretty good in this fight. So that's one potential character you could use. Another very commonly used character is Joshua. So Joshua, let me show you how you run him. Joshua, you actually want an Oler's bow for. And in terms of skill set, you'll want all passive. You'll want Ruthless for the crit damage increase. You'll want Ninjutsu because you're going to sit him on a tree. And you want Sneak for the extra crit rate. That and he has no other useful one-cost passive that can actually work from the tree tile. So when you do that, if we look at the fight, Joshua basically ends up parked on this tree tile here. And there are some moments where, like this Venomous Spit or the Sweep skill would hit him if you have him down here. But you can avoid those if you move him over onto this mountain. So he still gets a benefit from ninjutsu. And also his best troops are these Firebrand snipers. Because when they're on defensive terrain, you get 30% damage up. And also archers and assassins get attack up when attacking from defensive terrain as well. So if you have him built properly, he gets pretty high attack and does some pretty good damage. Now, another character that was shown here was Angelina. Angelina, I tend to run an offensive 2+2 build if I'm using her in here. Her strength is you can use alternate to reposition people. And you can also bring attack command. So she's sort of a support like Layla is in that sense. And when I ran her, I typically didn't use an attack skill. I actually brought attack intimidate. Because it's nice to have a constant source of attack down. I didn't actually have that in my 20 million run. Brinda's 3C, when you use it, it can produce an attack down debuff, but it's not going to be like a constant thing. So having someone with an attack down or passive can be quite useful. And in terms of equipment, she can always bring King's Crown to help someone increase their damage, or she could use Jormungandr's Eye to reduce the boss's damage dealt if you don't have that fairly rare mistletoe staff I had on Layla.
Seems like adding insult to injury using Jormungandr's Eye against him.
I didn't even think about that.
I guess he has enough to spare.
Okay, Deedlit is also fairly common. I tried to run with Deedlit instead of Layla, and it just fell apart faster. Where's my Deedlit? Here she is. So Deedlit, generally you want to run Sea of Miracles. The funny thing is, with my party, you notice none of my party that I had really needed the cooldown reduction. But if you're using people with longer cooldown skills, Sea of Miracles helps. And it helps refresh your own cooldowns. And then you want to go to attack skills. Now I'm using Infantry Deedlit, who gets to bring unicorns. And she's bulky enough where you'd be running like Star Earring or something. You don't have to worry about Med Ring for the fixed immune. The thing with her is, oftentimes on the even phase, you'll find that you need to use her as a ranged character. And there are times where you just won't have either attack skill up, and you're going to have to attack from melee and suffer the damage reduction penalty. So that's sort of an issue I ran into when using Deedlit. But she's pretty good. She's not bad for the fight. It's just not as easy and brain dead as my own strategy. Illustrial can be a pretty good DPS. You can use Uller's Bow. And if you bring the Forest Archers, you can always attack just like Joshua from the defensive terrain. Or I think it might be higher output just to use Bone Dinos, because Bone Dinos are just that powerful. And then you can use her skills from 2 range. And in terms of equipment, generally, I wouldn't use Twilight Star. I'd use something that gives her like base attack and base HP, just more bulk. And it's kind of... that sort of covers most of what you might expect to see. Some people use Lifany. I don't really think she's that great for this fight. Like, as a mage, she'll be wanting to run Med Ring as well. But she's got 2 basic attack skills with Lightning and Windblade. And she can use Aim as well to burn cooldowns. Or to burn off stacks. But generally, she's just frail, and she's not going to be dealing the most damage. Diehard is another example of someone who you might have built, but isn't really the best. But if you were to use them, I'd probably be running these 2 attack skills and probably move again. That is if you're using him as Cav. If you're using him as a assassin, he might actually be better, because then you could wear the Crystal Stinger weapon. So it might be an interesting case where his assassin class might just be better. But as far as I know, those would be like the most common choices.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you might find someone has a Leonhardt, he's usable. But at this point, we're kind of getting out of the realm of really good heroes.
Professor Q actually remembered another character he forgot to mention after we finished recording, and that's Clairette. She can be a pretty strong DPS as well, just not Kiri or Brenda level. She can go flyer for higher base attack, but infantry might be better because, you guessed it, she can equip Crystal Stinger. Berserkers are likely her best troop, but Griffin Knights are also good. Okay, back to class.
if there's nothing else, thank you very much for allowing me to show off the strategy and hopefully help some people.
Definitely. Well, thanks for coming on and giving us that detailed walkthrough of your characters and your equipment and your strategy in the boss.
All right, so everyone, make sure to remember to like and subscribe.
Thank you. Alright, so that concludes our video on Jormungandr. Please join me once again in the comments in thanking Professor Qtaru for that amazingly detailed and thorough lesson. I know it might not seem like it, but we both did put a lot of hard work into this episode, and the series as a whole. I don't usually do this in most of my videos, but I do hope you will consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and maybe even clicking the join button for more information on the perks of channel membership. It really goes a long way to help support this kind of longer form, specialized content. Anyway, thank you again so much for watching. I hope you took something valuable from this lesson, and we hope you'll be back for the next one. Happy leaderboarding, everyone.